Hello, my name is Gordon. In this video, we're going to go through some procedures that are pretty easy to follow to make a more realistic pilot for your radio-controlled model airplane. What we'll do is we'll take the well-known plastic Williams Brothers pilot bus, in this case a 1-inch scale, a little bit smaller, and I'll give some thoughts that I use to paint it for your model. So in the video, we'll start with the pilot bus that we've all worked with before. These are purchased on eBay. And through a little bit of work and effort, have a pilot that looks like this. And when we're done, here is the Williams Brothers pilot kit that many of us are familiar with. On the back of some instructions, note also that they discuss how to paint the eye. We'll go into more detail on this. The eye is a very important part of a realistic pilot. The first step is to glue the two halves together. We've done that here. You'll have to trim the glue off once everything is dry. Also, it's a good time to take a look at the cockpit of your airplane. Here's my live wire kitten. You can see that I've made enough space for the pilot, and there is clearance for the pilot's head for the windshield that eventually will be put in. Here's a pilot put in place, and you see that everything fits in pretty well. Plenty of room if you want to add a cockpit or any other detail to the interior. I use acrylic paints for painting the pilots. I purchased these on Amazon. Acrylic paints are inexpensive. No odors, and they work well with water. It'll take a couple coats, but they work pretty good for these pilot bus. As I mentioned, the eye is a very important part of a realistic pilot. I go to Google, type in paint a human eye. You find a couple pictures. It'll show the sclera, the white part of the eye, the iris, the colored portion, the pupil. Notice the eyebrow and shading on top of the eyelid. This is another picture of the eye. Note that you don't have the full circle of the eye to avoid a wide-eyed look. Also, very important is that white highlight. You'll see that on any painting of a human eye. We'll actually add that to our pilot figure for a more realistic look. Here's a pilot bust with the initial application of the white paint for the eyes. It will take a couple layers to do that. As you continue with the painting of the pilot, you can add whatever hair color you want, as well as details for the jacket, scarf, etc. And the acrylic paint, as I mentioned, will take a couple layers before you get it down to what is needed for the final pilot. The acrylic paints also mix well if you want to take, say, the flesh tone, add some red for a little bit of shading for lips or underneath the eyes. For detail work, I take a balsa stick, cut it to a very fine point, dip it into the paint. Here you can see the white paint used for the highlights on the eyes. Here's a pilot approaching completion. The scarf is put in place. You can see some shading underneath the eyes, the eyebrows, as well as the tinted red color for the lips. It's also a good time now to paint the cockpit. We'll be gluing the pilot in here shortly. Make sure everything's in place for the pilot prior to putting on the windshield. And here's a look at our finished painted pilot bust for the cockpit. The pilot is then glued into place. Notice that the cockpit is painted and there's clearance for the windshield to go over the pilot's head. I purchased the windshield materials from Amazon, cut out a pattern, glued everything in place with clear canopy glue. The glue is just ideal for something like this with a little bit of Monaco trim at the bottom. Here's the finished live wire kitten. Should be a fun little 3-channel flyer. It's always nice to bring back these kits from the 50s, a very popular held bolt kit. And with the small amount of work on the pilot, I think it's a nice addition to the model. Gives a little bit of realism for this fun sport flyer.